line here where he says, "I openly confess the suggestion of David Hume was the very thing which many years ago first interrupted my dogmatic slumber and gave my investigations in the field of speculative philosophy quite a new direction." So the question then is, can there be a metaphysics? And what he is finding here is, yes, we can transcend this limitation, so we have a transcendental method, a transcendental method by which we can find the a priori. And what I wanted to go to is the structure of the others of the things. I'm pretty sure we're in this ballpark here. So these are the questions he's asking. How is pure mathematics possible? Because the problem applies to mathematics as well. How is pure natural science possible? How is metaphysics in general possible? How is metaphysics as a science possible? Notice that it's actually quite interesting. The mathematical formula he uses to put this into question is this one right here. And it's funny that if you see an article and someone mentions the proposition 7 plus 5 equals 12, how do we know that that's actually true? Habit, right? Well, how can you know that the numbers actually equal that in some absolute sense, right? That's the same issue here, right? What's funny is in lots of literature, I've seen that very addition, 7 plus 5 equals 12. So whenever you see that, keep in mind that the person is essentially cueing you in that he's aware of this piece, right? 7 plus 5 equals 12. Why else would they have picked that? You know, it must be that they're thinking about Kant's argument in this particular place. I don't know if you find this exciting or not. However, so how is reason possible, etc.? And I want space. He's talking about space there. Time is the first one he talked about. And basically what he's going to do, here we go, is give us a different version of Aristotle's different categories. You remember, way back, when we're doing Aristotle, we think about Aristotle's categorical reasoning. Gives us the four causes as one aspect of that. But then he also gives us the categories which include substance, quantity, quality, and things of that sort. Well, Kant essentially accepts those, although he makes them 12. I don't know if that's something unique about being German or not, but instead of 10, he gives us 12, right? And he's going to argue, and this is fascinating because all along, questions that the Greeks started with, like, how can something be one thing, but at the same time be many things? And yet it seems like everything can be broken down into its parts, right? That's a contradiction. It's an antinomony. It can't be resolved. It has to be the case, but at the same time it seems logically impossible. So it was very strange for the Greeks all the way. It became a problem. Here's the solution, thank you, Kant, is that it's not the nature of the object itself to be one thing and to have many parts. It's that human beings frame everything as though it's a thing and has many parts. That's the way we frame the thing. It's not the thing itself has these characteristics. We can't tell what kind of characteristics the thing has. But every single thing that a human being pays attention to can be framed as if it has a unity and a plurality, right? Everything we experience, we frame that way. It's not the characteristic of the thing in itself, it's the characteristic of human appreciation of things, how we perceive things. We apply all of this stuff. So quantity, things are either universal, particular, singular. Quality, with regard to quality, everything we think of as affirmative or negative or infinite. That comes from us, not from the nature of the thing itself. And relations, we have categorical relations, hypothetical, disjunctive relations. As far as modality, we have problematical, assertorial, and apodictical. By the way, that means perfect. I don't know if you ever have a friend who loves the word uses that word, and it means perfect. It's kind of a fun thing. So those are the logical table of judgments. They come from our minds. And as to quantity, we have unity, plurality, totality, the whole thing. Reality, negation, limitation. Substance, cause, community, possibility exists. So these come from the mind. So for Kant, this discovery, thank you, Hume. In fact, he points out, Hume led to this, although Hume never went all the way. He figured out the problem with our knowledge being of our sense experience at the moment and left it there. But what enabled Kant to move on was realizing there had to be an answer to this, and the answer is that, we frame these things. So it comes from our framing things. Now, an interesting problem is he doesn't explain how or where this characteristic of the human mind comes from. And so you end up then with a whole set of folks following Kant trying to figure out where does this come from, right? Is it biological? Is it something to do with the nature of our human mechanism, the way the eye perceives things, or the mind receives the stimuli from the eye, etc. Remember, this is early, and things are not they're not into studying synapses and all of those kinds of things that we get into today. But it did lead to a group of individuals that started a field of psychology that we think of today as Gestalt psychology. Gestalt means an image, and the Gestalt psychologist believed that it's a good choice here. So the Gestalt psychologists will argue that our brains, the way they're built, structure these experiences. So that's why we have these experiences, and we're going to experience things this way. I don't know, by the way, they still, I think, use the idea of Gestalt, because it isn't wrong, right? It's just not really complete today, we know. But as a Gestalt psychologist years ago, I even had the fun experience of sitting with a Gestalt psychologist through what's called the Rorschach test. You ever heard of that? Because it's so passé now that they don't use it anymore. If they do use it, I'm sure it's on a computer. There we go. But at the time, I was had finished my master's. I was thinking of going to seminary. Had applied to 2 seminaries, and the bishop was sending me, but I had to be tested to make sure that I wasn't crazy. Because apparently a lot of the future seminarians are tested and discovered to be crazy. They don't want crazy people going to seminary. So I was tested at Hahnemann Hospital by a Gestalt psychologist who sat at the table opposite me, kept a straight face through the whole thing, and showed me 50 bilaterally symmetrical ink blots. Easy to make, just spill some ink on a page, fold it in half, and let it dry, and you've got. But these are 50 specific ones that somebody had made that literally are the ones that they use in the test. None of them actually mean anything, right? It's not like they're in disguise, particular like a bat or a butterfly. No, they're just ink blots, right? The way the test goes is they put the ink blot in front of you and they ask you with a straight face, because they don't want to mislead you or anything, they don't want to. And now I think, probably you take it on a computer so you don't have that issue of the doctor making you think something. But you're supposed to report what you see. And the way this game is played is you have to see something. You cannot say to the doctor, it's a bilaterally symmetrical ink blot. I think that would fail you. I'm not sure. You're supposed to look at it and say, gee, what does that look like to you? Anybody? A moth? I like that. You're sane. Thank you. You pass. If you say it's my mother killing my father with an axe, you're probably crazy. So that would be wrong, right? So the trick of this test is you go through 50 ink blots, and what you've got to do, and the first couple are easy, but after a while you can't say they're all butterflies. You have to come up with something, right? And yet at the same time you want to make sure it's not crazy. It's normal, whatever normal is. And the test is over, and you don't get any results. You just find out from the church, okay, you pass. So you're still sane. So, who knows, right? But so Gestalt psychology, that's kind of interesting. I think it does work in a lot of ways. If you're driving, I'm assuming you have a car. I don't know if you have a car. And in your car, do you have a thing called a radio? No, nobody, a radio. You used to have them in cars. You could listen to music just out of the atmosphere. It's amazing. Actually, I still use one, and I listen to KLEF all the time. But whenever my daughter gets into her car, she has a wire connected to her phone, so I don't know where her music comes from. In any case, if you're driving down the street and you're listening to music and you see a pedestrian walking along, notice that pedestrian will walk in beat with the music you're listening to. Even though that pedestrian can't hear the radio or the music that you're listening to, they'll be in beat with that music. And here's the neat test. Without getting into an accident, change the music, and you'll notice the pedestrian changes their steps to walk in the beat with that new music. Clearly it's not the pedestrian, it's the way you're perceiving the pedestrian's patterns at the same time that you're listening to the music. So you will accommodate the beat and the experience of seeing the pedestrian by putting the two of them together somehow. Good test? You could try this on your own, right? Check it. There's other things that work that way. There's all kinds of interesting tests. So the Rorschach test, the idea of Gestalt, the idea that our brains are structuring our experience is certainly not wrong. Of course, it's not the whole thing. What else? Well, famously, we end up with this guy, Ziggy, right? Sigmund Freud. And Ziggy is going to study in several places and ends up becoming a psychiatrist in Vienna, where there are no secrets as far as he's concerned. And his patients are primarily women, wealthy women, mostly wealthy Jewish women in the city of Vienna. And what he discovers is that what else structures the human mind is our experiences from the past, our childhoods, so that we go through various stages that structure how we perceive our experience. So, for example, you go through the oral stage as a child, right? Everything goes in your mouth. I mentioned the toes, I think, the other day, right? And the anal stage, and I mentioned another aspect of our experience last class. That was, I probably should have given you a trigger warning for that one, right? But the anal stage, we go through that as we discover that. And then, oddly, we go through another stage that Freud thought especially important. And as far as I know, that stage was uniquely male, the way he described it. But actually, of course, everybody has genitals. The genital stage, could we call it that? Where you discover another aspect of your... As far as I know, that was the last stage he discussed. So I don't know what happened to that.